things a few years back, and I'm not going to lie, the school board was my first stepping point of actually paying attention to politics at all. And then that kind of rolled into working directly with our current Councilwoman Bergerson, Erin, to work on some rezoning initiatives that we started working with as soon as she got into office. So we started working on rezoning, and then I was becoming more and more involved and immersed into school stuff, school board issues, and then the rezoning initiatives, and then learning more and more about county. Politics is not something that I ever thought that I would ever be interested in. So it's not that I'm like, yay, I'm into politics, but it's more of, I want to help support our community. I've been called a community advocate before. I have seen a lot of things over the years that have made me want to become involved. It's being a proponent of change, but responsible change, and how we can all work together to do what is best for our community. So that's really why I've gotten involved. We all know that there's a lot of problems in the area, and that's mostly stemmed from overdevelopment or irresponsible development. I did start the One Chapin Facebook page. Originally, it started out as a very small group of people to talk about what we were wanting to do, and then it blossomed into a group of over 2,000 people now. And I had a conversation with a resident the other day on Messenger, and I said a couple of months ago, I got so frustrated with it, I was just like, I'm just going to delete the whole site. And he's like, no, don't ever do that, because it's a really great site to help get news out about different initiatives and different things that are going on in our community. So being a community advocate is really the main reason why I've decided to pursue this. Erin and I work together. It's kind of exciting to see all of the change that you can work together to make for the greater common good of the community. So that's why. Absolutely. That's fueled my flame of insanity to jump in and do
Well,
this.
glad that it did. All right. Well, thank you for that overview. It's very, very helpful and a good insight. So with that, we're going to get started with our questions, and I'm going to kick it off, and then William and Mary will follow up with some additional questions. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the first question was from a community member, and she said, thank you for your willingness to serve as councilperson for Lexington County. Chapin is governed by both the county and the town of Chapin. How do you see the collaboration of these two independent groups to bring future business, not residential growth, to the Chapin area?
So that's a good question, and we've actually already started doing that. Al and I have had many conversations, and I think it's really important that each of the groups that involve the entire area work together for the greater common good. So as an example, there was a group of citizens that got together last week. And of course, I was just like, hey, Al, are you coming? He was just like, sure. Right. So Al was at the table along with other citizens in the community, and we started talking about different zoning initiatives and different things that were going on at the county level that would impact Chapin, and then how sewer plays a role in all of that. So I think the biggest proponent of having the entities work together is being at the same table and having these conversations and not acting like you're in a silo. Like, we're all in this together. So anything that happens on the outskirts of Chapin proper affects what happens in the town limits. So everybody has to be a part of that. I think that's the biggest part, is just having everybody work together, and having those conversations and being open to converse about the different subjects and topics that are going to affect everybody.
William?
All right, so next question that we have also submitted from a resident of the community. And before I ask, I do want to preface, Charli, you might want to clear up the common misconception on Brighton Park. and where or who governs that part of Chapin. But the question reads, how can we ensure Brighton Park becomes a productive investment for Lexington County and a vibrant part of Chapin's business community?
Okay, so Brighton Park, that is, Al, I think you may have referred to it as the elephant in the room. Somebody referred to that as the elephant in the room. I can't remember who it was. So Brighton Park, the county owns Brighton Park. And Al, you can jump in. I know that the town of Chapin controls the sewer that would go into Brighton Park. And I believe the water would come from Columbia's water source. So all three of those entities, of course, are going to have to work together no matter what goes into Brighton Park in the future. And just to kind of back up a little bit on the I guess, to Brighton Park as a whole, when Erin got on council, the park wasn't finished. So in Erin's first year, she actually finished Lexington County's portion of the park, without a building or a business being in there. And I believe she started a grand opening in January of 2018. So that was one step, right? So in her first year on council, she actually got the park finished and did a grand opening. The other things with Brighton Park that have had a huge impact, prior to VC Summer going belly up, the county had been focusing some of their efforts on nuclear type businesses that would support VC Summer. I'm not saying that they put all their eggs in their one basket, because there were some other companies that they also had talked to. VC Summer is no longer the entity that it was. So all of those leads, of course, poof, they're gone, right? They have been trying to get other businesses in, but there's a few things that are working against it. One, we don't have an international airport. So the closest international airport is going to be Greenville, Spartanburg, Charleston, or Charlotte. So that is something that's going to hamper having a business and technology park. When they bring people into the area, they're going to need an airport that can bring folks in, right? The closest hotel is either Newberry or Harbison. So again, we've got a couple of things just lying outside the area that are working against us with Brighton. We've also had a couple of companies that had said, hey, it looks great, but you guys don't meet our base requirements. GIS, when GIS came into Chapin, they hired 600 employees. And I believe it was around the 300 employee mark they actually had to bring into the area, because we didn't have the employee base at that time in Chapin. Or the surrounding areas. So you've got some things that are kind of working against you. And again, we did have another company that turned us down just because we were just literally a couple of miles outside of what their base requirements were for the radius that they were looking for. So the Brighton is going to be rebranded, and I've talked with Erin a good bit about this. So instead of it being a business and technology park, they're talking about it just being Brighton Park. So they're talking about possibly rebranding it. They're talking about looking at some different businesses. So we don't have the water and sewer support for a major manufacturing, but we do have for light manufacturing. So they're going to look at some different options that can bring possibly some light manufacturing in. And I do know that there has been a first phase of homes that have been submitted. I don't know where it is in the process, but I believe it was 35 homes right now that have been submitted for a possible review that would go into the Brighton Park area. Again, I don't know where it is in the process of Lexington County's Development Review Board, but I know that something has been submitted. So in looking at possibly rebranding Brighton Park, research and development is one of the areas that they're looking at as well. So to help support companies for research and development. So light manufacturing, R&D, they've talked about possibly a spec building, but I don't know if that'll happen yet. Does that help set the stage a little bit for what the future might hold for Brighton Park?
I think so.
Okay.
All right, Mary.
All right. Welcome. Prior to COVID-19, there was a push to implement a penny tax in Lexington County to improve local roads. What is your position on this penny tax?
I think we're taxed too much right now as it is. So there was a penny tax years ago that did not go through, and they were talking about doing a penny tax specifically for roads and maintenance on roads. Right now with COVID, I don't think that they should do any additional taxes. And we've got enough people who are struggling financially. There's unemployment issues. There's a lot of issues. Our taxes also have already increased to pay for a bond, a loan on a bond here recently. So we've got enough challenges with people being overtaxed as it is. And I believe, don't quote me on this, that penny tax is being shelved right now, and it will probably be back in a couple of years. And I will say that if it is fully designated down the road that it's going to X, Y, and Z and only X, Y, and Z, not into a general fund, and it can be held to what it's supposed to go for, that I don't think it would be the worst thing. But again, that is not going to be on the table for right now, and I don't support it right now. Perhaps down the road, but not right now.
Okay, all right. And then kind of following up on that with talking about roads, what actions can you propose for the traffic problems on county-owned roads in the Chapin areas?
So I think the first thing that we have to look at with county-owned roads is to find out what the specific issues are and on which roads. So you've got your major corridors: Amex Ferry, Old Lexington, Wessinger, Columbia Avenue. Those are all state-owned roads. They are not county-owned roads. So we'd have to look at the county, specifically the county roads, and what are the problems that we have with those county roads. And I don't know if the person that asked that question is here on the call right now, but if there's something that anybody wanted to elaborate in the chat area, feel free to toss that into the chat area as well. But so, like, if there's a problem specifically, then we need to know what it is so that we can look at how to address it. And I will say, all of the additional neighborhoods that get developed and put in, when those developments are completed, those developers turn those neighborhood roads over to the county. So as we have more and more neighborhoods being developed, the county is going to inherit more and more roads as county roads. So all of those neighborhood roads within those developments will eventually be turned over to the county to maintain. So I think first things first, let's be specific on what are the issues on county roads, right? So then we can figure out how to address them. Secondly, if the major issues are on state roads, then we need to figure out how to work best with the state and say, hey, state DOT, we've got some major issues out here. How are we going to work together to solve them?
Okay. All right, so the next question is, it has come to light that there is a large parcel of property on Amex Ferry Road for sale, which is currently zoned R4. What are your thoughts on having that property rezoned for a limited local designation to allow for businesses on Amex Ferry?
Okay. I have been so involved in this question. So several years ago, we worked really, really hard to rezone a lot of the roads around here to RL4, right? RL4 is 4 homes per acre. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's just 4 homes per acre. It is 4 homes per gross acre, right? So I actually could put, if I were a developer, which I'm not, I could actually put more than 4 homes on 1 acre because it's a gross acre and you have to account for roads and detention ponds and all of this stuff, right? So So we worked really hard for that. And RL4 was the lowest designation we had at that time. Since then, Erin has gotten some additional designations or ordinances put on the books. We have RL1, which is 1 home per acre, RL2, which is 2 homes per acre, and we have RL4. We have limited local, which we didn't have before. So before it was just local, and local is 6 homes per acre, and a lot of different commercial businesses could go there. Limited local is new, and that is 4 homes per acre. So limited local and RL4, same number of homes, right? We got 4 homes per acre, but limited local will allow some businesses. So it could allow a country store. It could allow a small mom and pop gas station type of thing. So looking at Amix Ferry Road specifically, we have from the red light in Chapin to Sandbar is collector. Al, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe it's collector. From Sandbar to Old Ferry, which takes you all the way through the Bear Creek Bridge, past our Christmas tree farm, all the way out to Old Ferry, it is local. From Old Ferry to the end, it's currently RL4. And the reason why Old Ferry is one of those stopping points is Old Ferry itself is a limited, is local, because there is a business on Old Ferry, right? So we couldn't change that because there's a business there. So what the talk is right now is to take from Old Ferry to Lakemont, which is down past Frick's store. So for those of you that have been in the area for a long time and you're familiar with Amix Ferry Road, there's Frick's store that's been closed for a number of years. If that could never reopen as anything if it's just RL4, right? So what we're talking about doing is changing from Old Ferry down to Lakemont to limited local. I don't know if we're going to do it farther than that, all the way down to Timberlake, because there are some things going in at Timberlake Golf Country Club that can be done down there already, because there's some stipulations that a golf course can have certain businesses. So they're looking at that. So we don't know if the wish is to do limited local from Old Ferry to the end or Old Ferry to Lakemont. And if we went to limited local, again, 4 homes per acre still is the same as RL4. It will just allow that Frick store could be changed and reopened as something. It can allow some businesses, not the same types of commercial that local would allow, but limited local would allow some businesses. It could be like a medical doctor's office. It could be a convenience store with a gas station. So it could be a number of different things, right? And there's some people that are very against that, and there's some people that are for that. 2 reasons. Any kind of a commercial business that's going to come in is actually going to add to the tax base. Residential development isn't really going to add to the tax base. There are some large landowners down Amix Ferry Road, and some of them will most likely be selling their property. So then the thought is 4 homes per acre. Do you want to sell it to a developer, or do you want to sell it to somebody who might reopen Frick's store or might create a country convenience store under the ordinances that we have that would fit the area of a scenic corridor? So those are some things that we're looking at. And it seems right now that the lean is toward limited local, so that we can help have some things to help service the folks at the end of Amix Ferry Road as well. I don't know if that helps address that question. There's nothing set in stone right now.
It's a little hard to talk in theory, I understand.
It is, and it's just like, so we do need the tax base. And like what Hope is saying here, residential is not really going to provide that tax base. There's just not a lot of income coming in from residential. And when you start talking about the traffic on the road, would you rather have, that 100 acres down the road get sold to a developer to have, 400 homes on? Because limited local is still RL4, or not, limited local is still 4 homes per acre, and then there's RL4, which is 4 homes per acre? Or would you rather have a 3 or 4 or 5 acre chunk cut out for a business that actually will serve the people in the area instead of throwing more homes on it? You know, so I think you have to really take a step back, and you have to look at, am I hurting the area by keeping it at RL4 that doesn't allow any businesses to come in? Or am I going to help the area and serve the citizens by allowing limited local for some types of commercial to come in, but not wide open for anything? You know?
Gotcha.
Right. Hope. And if growth is inevitable, and it does need to be smart, and it needs to be specific, and it needs to be efficient, and it needs to be, you know, specific to help the area.
All right, William, next question.
All right. Speaking of Amex Ferry and adding more people, how do you plan on working with emergency services to improve the response times and coverage when it comes to the Chapin area?
Okay, so the ambulance service, this is a loaded question. And William, I am going to defer to you to help explain some of this. So, and I'll kind of back up for a minute. Years ago, there was a change made to the ambulance service, fire service, and the way all of the calls were structured and handled, right? So years ago, there was an ambulance that stayed down here on Amex Ferry Road. There was one in Chapin, you know, so they were scattered around the area. But the county changed the way the entire county operates, not just Chapin. So they changed, and they put into a system where they basically rate the calls that come into the system. And fortunately for us, our side of the lake doesn't get as many calls as the other side of the lake, right? But we do have this beautiful lake that kind of creates a divider, right? And then it makes it a little harder. You can't just jump over the lake to get here by ambulance. So what they've done is they've taken a look at where the majority of the calls come in around the entire county. So they took a map of the county and said, here's a high concentration of calls, here's a lower concentration of calls. And they have placed ambulances around the county in certain places. And basically when a call comes in, they rate that call. Is this a life-threatening emergency, or is this an emergency of, I'm not feeling very well, right? And they rearranged the ambulances based on the level of emergency. So if somebody's having a life or death emergency on Amex Ferry Road, they're going to send the closest ambulance as quickly as they can. And then they're going to reposition all of those other ambulances to kind of be in their waiting spots, right? And William, you know more about how they handle with the fire trucks, but we do have fire trucks in the area, and they all get dispersed. You know, they will all get to where they're going. So do I know if we can ever have an ambulance stationed at Amex Ferry Road? I don't know. I don't know if we can find the funding to do that. I don't know. I haven't learned enough about that yet to find out what the parameters are and what is needed. But I do know that ambulances are rotated and repositioned so that there is coverage while one is out on a call. William, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the call system goes, it's broken down in what they call ALS and BLS, and they have ALS ambulances that are like advanced life support, and they have the BLS, which is basic life support. So it's a very complicated system that is being explained on kind of who goes where, because you have those two different type of ambulances, but majority of the time there is going to be an ambulance in Chapin located at on East Boundary Street, which splits the two major parts of Chapin, being the old Hilton Wessinger side and then the Amex Ferry St. Peter's Church Road side. I think what our residents do need to know, fire stations that are manned 24/7. Crossroads has 3 people at that station at full time, and that's 2 firefighters and 1 driver. Amex Ferry has 4, and that's where the captain is as well. So no matter what, if there's an extended time or response in time from an ambulance, one of those fire stations is going to be toned as well to respond to whatever problem is going on. So most of the time, you will see a fire truck and ambulance come, and depending on the severity of the issue, you might even see 2 fire trucks come, like for example, a cardiac arrest or someone
You're breaking up a little bit, William.
having an advanced life, kind of expanding all 3 of those fire station jobs. Am I breaking up?
Oh, just a
Bringing
little
in
bit.
other fire stations to cover Chapin as well if everything else is tied up. So the other night when they had a fire, they brought in Irmo and they brought in Little Mountain to help cover our area. So I think that would pretty much kind of answer the question and kind of give people the comfort of knowing that no matter what, someone's going to respond. It may not be, you know, an ambulance on Amex Ferry, but it will be a fire truck from Amex Ferry. And that ambulance is coming as quick as it can.
And our firefighters are changed in emergency situations, trained
Right.
in emergency situations as well.
Yeah,
So they all know triage and the basic, you know, life-saving skills.
Right. I think every firefighter coming in now in Lexington County is at an EMR level, which is one step below an EMT. And there's a handful of EMTs on Chapin Fire as well. So, and we do have a handful of volunteers that are scattered throughout the county or the area as well.
And Hope, you asked, how can we get more ambulances? I actually listened to a budget meeting the other day. If you guys really want some exciting information, definitely pull up and listen to the recorded streaming Lexington County budget proposal. It actually is really interesting to see how all of the entities of the county are working together and how they've pulled in and done different things with the budget and what the requests are. And there are requests for some additional funding to go toward ambulance services. I'm not sure yet when and if that will be approved. But it's just like managing everybody's budget. I mean, you have a budget that you live within. So it's trying to figure out how we're going to, or how the county is going to look at rebudgeting and moving that information, that the funds available to different entities of the county. And as you guys know, COVID has probably put quite the squeeze, not just on people individually, but also the county. We have a comprehensive plan that has started, and that was supposed to have gotten started pretty good this spring. It was approved in the budget. I think it's like $400,000, $388,000 for a comprehensive plan, and there's going to be a consultant that's involved, and that was supposed to start this spring. Obviously, it's got pushed back a little bit because of COVID. Everything got pushed back because of COVID. So part of that comprehensive plan for the county, and this kind of goes back to the zoning conversations, is looking at the entire county, looking at the designations, looking at resources that are going to be allocated to certain areas of the county, but then deciding how the future should be shaped in certain areas as well. So that comprehensive plan is going to take about 2 years. I think it's 18 months total to actually work through to create the comprehensive plan. Super excited about that because I will definitely be heavily involved in that process as well. So hopefully we can add some more ambulances. Personally, I would like to do that.
And Hope, you do have to, as far as adding more ambulances, what comes with that is not only just the unit, but you have to have the staffing for it as well. So we have to make sure we have enough EMTs and have enough paramedics to be on those ambulances.
Mary, I think you have the next question.
Yes. So this person says, I am concerned about the number of housing development going around the Amex Ferry School outside of Chapin and the impact on our county in several areas, and would like to know what Ms. Wessinger will propose to council.
All right.
points.
So you're breaking up a little bit. Do you have that written that you can copy and paste it into the chat window?
So specifically, you want me to follow up on that question, Mary? You're kind of breaking up. Specifically, the question asked what you would propose about developers, clear cutting, and the impact on drainage and aesthetics. The impact of new development on infrastructure, especially water service, traffic, and then there's a question about EMTs on Amex Ferry, specifically on how they will be able to get to the end of the peninsula and return during the school drop-off and pickup times, and working with the school board to get consensus on locations for new schools so that the negative impact to infrastructure is mitigated.
So November is very important. And I'm saying that in general because right now we have a school board that in the past has been difficult to work with. Okay, so November is very important. Number two, EMT and paramedic services with a school that's going to be open. I believe it is projected for fall of 2021. So we have a whole nother year to go through before that school opens. So I am hoping that a lot will be done in the coming year to help tie down how we're going to service that school. So in the past, there has not been conversations with the different entities, and by the school coming out and putting a school on Amex Ferry Road obviously affects the ability, can the county serve that school, right? Between EMT, fire, ambulance, if there's an active shooter. God, I hope there's never an active shooter situation in any of our communities. So there's a lot of communication that should have taken place that did not take place. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. All right, we have to move forward from that. So again, this fall is going to be very, very important into how those future conversations work. Okay. I don't have answers to those questions right now as far as, will there be another ambulance? How are we going to serve Amex Ferry corridor when the school opens down here or any other place down the road? 10 years from now, another school could pop up or less, so it's just like some of those questions, we're going to have to work together and pull in the community to figure out how we're going to best serve the community, with schools opening down the road. What I can tell you though, as far as developers clear cutting and the impact on drainage, and even stormwater. So you guys are familiar with the soil that we have in our area, right? We don't have a sandy, poor soil. We have this fabulous red clay. And if you're lucky, like me, you actually have white clay, which is even harder than red clay, if you didn't know that. So I can actually dig down about 6 inches and I hit this white cement that is just absolutely, you probably make pottery out of it. But anyways, so we've got red clay and white clay, mostly red clay in the area. And you guys know what happens when they come in and they clear cut. They've got heavy equipment rolling over that red clay, which packs it down even more, if that's even possible, but they pack it down even more. They smooth it off. So basically it turns into cement. So when it rains, that water just washes right over it. The water can't soak into the ground because now it's basically red cement and it just flows. And water is going to follow the path of least resistance, right? Which is creating stormwater issues. So it's going to flood out people's foundations. It's going to wash under people's driveways. And there is a huge problem right now, especially down Wessinger Road, Old Lexington, where there have been clear cutting and these new developments have been popping up. Huge issues with stormwater drainage. And it's not only eroding people's homes and screwing up their foundation and their driveways, but it's creating a lot of stormwater pollution into the lake, right? So there's a lot of issues with that. So you take that bit of knowledge that you have and you look at the comprehensive plan that we're working on. Granted, it's going to take 18 months, right? So the comprehensive plan is going to be very important to the future growth of the area. You also couple that with zoning and ordinances. So there is part of the comprehensive plan is going to have we've talked about a trophy tree ordinance. where developers can't clear cut. They can't cut down a tree over, I think it's 24 inches in diameter at breast height. Now, if a developer does, they have to pay a fine. Is that fine steep enough? I don't know. I don't think so. Who's going to be policing that? That we don't have county police that's going to, they're going to run out to all development site and measure the trees and, look at what the developer's doing. So what that means is the community has to basically police all of this information, right? The community has to be involved. The community has to help keep an eye on things. And then you call the county, you call the representatives, you call and you say, hey, this is going on over here. And what then will happen is the county will then go out and inspect it. When was it? February, March, April. I believe in the April County Council meeting, they approved an increase in fees. Like 500% increase in fees. That every time somebody calls and an inspector goes out and they pass that fee on to the developer, if there's a stop order or any of those things, then, and that's important information to know, because the more the community helps police some of these things that are going on, the more fines the developer is going to have to pay, and stop work orders can be issued until they fix the issues that are going on. So there's been some stop work orders. There were 5, 2 of them in some Chapin area developments that were issued because of the stormwater detention ponds were failing. So the county issued a stop work order until that developer can fix those. So as far as everything working together, like I said, you've got your comprehensive plan. It's going to take roughly 18 months to work that through. You've got ordinances that are in place. You've got people that will come out and inspect development sites. We're trying to disallow any kind of clear cutting in the comprehensive plan. Some of the other things that are going into the comprehensive plan that are being worked on right now are, instead of a 10-foot setback from the road right away to the beginning of a house, which it used to be 20. That setback was 20 feet. So you'd actually have enough room to park cars in a driveway. And that got changed 10 years ago, I believe it was 8 to 10 years ago. That got changed to 10 feet. So now we're looking at 30 feet. We're also looking at if a house has 5 bedrooms, having enough parking on the lot for that home to have enough vehicles to park there, so that people are not parking in the streets, so that EMS and fire services can get through. They're also looking at increasing the distance between homes. So in Tanner's Mill, where we had a fire the other day, and I don't know how close that home was to their neighbor's home, but if they had 0 lot lines, that home fire very easily could have spread to 2 or even 3 homes, right? One on either side of it. So we do have some neighborhoods that have 0 lot lines that the developers are doing. So we are trying to increase that as well. So we're trying to look at ways to increase setback, increase distance between homes that will help with fire emergencies, that will help with not parking in the streets, that will help with stormwater drainage, because then there'll be more room available for the water to run through instead of running through a house or under somebody's foundation. And I know that may not have directly answered that question, but I think it's important to understand how all of these things are working together for the betterment of the community, and things that we have that we're working on for down the road with the comprehensive plan.
All right.
Does that help?
I think so. It was a pretty long question.
Yes, it's a long question, a long answer.
All right, William, I think you have the next question.
Yes, I believe this is the last pre-submitted question. But it reads, with many Chapin, Irmo, and Lexington County residents living in close proximity to Richland County, do you have any plans to work closer with Richland County Council when it comes to shared roads, development, school board issues, or any other issues that overlap county lines in your district?
I think everybody should work together. Richland County is just right across, the road, and we do share a school system. I think it's important for all of those entities, and this is where your state reps are going to come in: Chip Huggins, Nathan Ballantyne, Ronnie Cromer. So like they all represent those areas as well. So that's where you get all of the players at the table, right? Tomorrow I'm actually meeting with a lady down in Irmo that works for, she's the town of Irmo, and I'm going to be meeting with her to find out what her concerns are as well. So I think it goes down to the fact that everybody needs to work together for the greater good of the community. And, one county that's doing one thing should say, hey, county, we're going to be doing this over here. What do you guys do for this? Or how do you work together? So I think it's asking questions, and it's communicating, and it's sharing information and finding out how you can serve the area the best. And that includes the state roads. So it's not just the county roads, it's the state DOT as well, the state-owned roads, which I do believe I've heard that the state sometimes will give permission to the county to do X, Y, and Z. So again, it goes back to funding, right? We all need money. Money makes the world go round. And how all of those entities can work together. I'm a big proponent of working together. I don't like silos.
Very good. Well, Charli, that was the end of our pre-submitted questions. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time to answer these questions. And if you have a few minutes, if we have anybody on the call that has one or two more questions that they would like to ask directly, you're welcome to do so.
I do.
All right. So Mr. Lovelace has a question for
Charli.
Hey, Ken.
How are you? I was listening in. I don't have the video on, but anyway, this is a question that I've been concerned with for a while. I know probably Councilman Kuhn is too. But the small businesses basically fund the schools in our community, and our schools are the reason that people are moving to Chapin area. We've changed the road classifications on Apex Ferry and St. Peter's and Old Lexington and Wessinger corridors. And I'm basically wondering what we're going to do and where the new businesses would go. In your estimation, there has to be a place for them. The land that cost up there, having built a lot of commercial things, up in the Chapin area, is very expensive compared to other areas of our county. So, what are we going to do to, or where are they going to go, and what are we going to do to entice new small businesses for success? Because those are the items, those are the things that fund our schools. And I'll take that.
So, Ken, I don't think you were on the call earlier when we were talking about limited local. And that there's some land that will probably be sold down the road. And I'm pointing this way. That's down Amex Ferry Road, is over there, right from where I'm sitting. So there's an area of Amex Ferry Road that is currently RL4 that we're looking at changing back to, I shouldn't say back to, but changing to limited local, which is also 4 homes per area, 4 homes per acre, but that it will also allow some commercial development. And since commercial does pay the brunt of the taxes, not residential, the county, this area could use a little bit more commercial development. And I'm not talking about a hospital. I'm talking about smaller shops that will help serve those areas. And that goes back to the comprehensive plan. And that goes back to some of the ordinances surrounding a scenic corridor. So, if we're going to have a mom and pop shop open up down the road, like Frick's store used to be, where you could go and you get a little meal, some basic groceries, it'll have to look a certain way. It'll fit in with the environment that it's surrounding. So limited local is going to be used. I'm pretty sure down in an area of Amex Ferry Road. But in using Amex Ferry Road specifically from the city, the town limits of Chapin, from the stoplight all the way to, what did I say? Sandbar is collector. From Sandbar to Old Ferry is local, which allows all kinds of, commercial and 6 homes per acre. From Old Ferry to the end is RL4, but we're looking at doing Old Ferry to Lakemont as limited local. That would allow some different things. And down on Wessinger and Old Lexington, it of course is the same thing. It starts out being a collector, and then it goes to local, and then it goes down to RL4, you know, past a certain point. So you can't go lower than the designation that's already allowed in that particular area based on things that are there already. So those are some things that we're looking at. Ken, does that help?
Yes, and well, yes and no, but I mean, you know, the limiting factor on those roads, like, you know, the corridors like we're talking about, is highway department access, and they won't let you have access directly off of Phoenix Ferry Road. So to do that, you have to either put a turn lane or widen the road, and you know, of course, whatever business would have to pay for that. So that means any feeder roads off of there, or where the development for a business would have to go. So that is a limiting factor that needs to be taken into account when you change. Basically, the zoning is not being changed, but the use of the roads is, and those are very restrictive as far as what businesses can do, and I know that because, you know, I've tried to look at that. So anyway, the point I was making is that when I was going to move Loveless Commercial Contracting up there on Amex Ferry Road, and we pay something like $120,000 a year in taxes that go to Lexington County. But unfortunately, wasn't able to do that, so we are paying that to Lexington 2 rather than Lexington Richland 5, which is where we live, and that's what we had always intended. So, I mean, I want to, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, you know, that we need a vibrant community with both residential and businesses, and especially businesses that relate to developments like Timberlake, for example. I mean, if we could be out there with some businesses, then that relieves the pressure on the town of Chapin. You don't have to drive, you know, 7-8 miles and then turn around and come back. You know, you have your service out there, and it decreases the road pressure in general. But anyway, I just want to make that point that while we're planning, and there are comprehensive plans, especially that we are very cognizant that those businesses are what support the schools, and that's the reason people are moving.
Right. And that goes back to the comprehensive plan and how we're going to map all of that out.
And in your comprehensive plan, I just wanted, you know, I saw that, and you know, I'm so glad you're doing that with the schools and so forth, so that we can, you know, the way I saw it, I wasn't on the school board when the new school on Amex Ferry was plopped right there, and that, you know, that to me speeded up everything by about 5 years to where the planning couldn't catch up to the actuality. And I want to make sure that we don't do that again on the other corridors, because I, like everybody else, sees the fact that we're going to have, unless we rezone eastward, you know, toward Irmo with the other, you know, with the schools, get more usage out of the eastern schools in our district, that we're going to have more schools built in the Chapin area. And that's something that we need to discuss. And you are right in what you said about November being a very important time, if nothing else, just for that reason.
Yep. Very important.
Very good. Thank you. I don't mean to, you know, to let up on it, but that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken, for your question, and thanks, Charlie, for your answer. We have about 3 more minutes. So does anyone have a last question for Charlie? All right. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for taking some time today on this Monday afternoon to kind of give us an overview of what you want to bring to County Council this year. Thank you for being with us.